Huh. Okay, welcome everybody to week 2. Hi, John. Week 2 of Ignite. So thank you to everyone for coming back again for our second week of Ignite. I am super excited to be teaching this class today. And I'm very excited to have my wing woman, Lori, here with me, who's going to be holding down the slideshows and managing the chat room for us. And today we have a really exciting topic. It is my favorite topic to teach with Ignite. And it is all about the listing presentation. So we are going to go over today from start to finish, how to pre-qualify a seller when you're lead generating, what questions to ask them, what work you need to do before going on the listing presentation to make sure that you're prepared, how to ace the listing presentation so that you get the seller to sign up with you every time, and some other tips and tricks that I have up my sleeve. So before we dive in, let's talk about why it's so important, especially right now, but really in any market, to focus your lead generation time on taking listings. And I know that I went over this in the first session that I taught, but who can give me a reason why we always focus on taking listings?
People come to you.
People come to you. Okay, tell me more about that, John.
So it's your listing. People are going to want to come see the house. So they're coming to, instead of you taking people out to see a variety of houses, you'll have buyers come to you.
Exactly. Buyers bring listings, or listings bring buyers. If you never, both ways. Sometimes those buyers have houses to sell and they bring more listings too, right? So listings bring buyers. If you don't want to lead generate ever for buyers, don't. Just go lead generate for listings, and I promise you'll have more than enough buyer leads to pick from. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that listings give you is typically the listing agent makes more on the sale than a buyer's agent. That's the standard in most of our markets now. It used to be 50-50. It's not really that way anymore. You make a higher commission for the same deal just by being a listing agent, right? You have the potential, like we just talked about, to get buyers. So we say a well-priced, well-marketed listing can get you to the closing table 4 commission checks. So you list one house and you collect 4 commission checks from it. That's a pretty good return on investment, right? So that would look like selling the listing, finding the buyer for the listing potentially, and then with marketing, by marketing your listings at a high level, picking up at least 2 other buyers from that listing alone. And I teach a really great class on marketing your listings using the tech package that we have here at KW. It's uploaded to our YouTube page, I believe. If anybody needs that link, feel free to email me and I'd be happy to shoot it out to you. And so that's another reason why we say always focus on listings. Listings give you marketing opportunities, right? When your neighbor sells their house, do you know who the buyer's agent is? Not usually. You might maybe when you meet the neighbor and you're talking to them, it might come up in conversation. But when your neighbor lists their home for sale, what do you do every day when you have to drive past the house to get into your parking lot? You look at their sign in the yard, right? You might go online and search for the property to see because you're dying to see what their kitchen renovation looks like, right? Or what their backyard looks like that you can't see behind the fence. And in doing so, do you see the listing agent's information? Yes. Many marketing studies have shown us that buyers are most interested. The thing that tracks the best on social media and in other marketing efforts, email marketing, postcard marketing, anything. The thing that works the best is a home that's for sale or an open house that you're listing. You will get the most leads off of those things. So that is the other opportunity of going out and taking listings, is it opens up all of these marketing opportunities for you, right? And it also allows you to take market share. It's always good when you get on a listing presentation and the seller says, I've seen your name or your face around, right? We let you put your faces on your signs if you want. That means that as people are driving around and you're taking listings all around your target marketing, your face and your name and your cell phone number and your email address are popping up everywhere so that you're a familiar face when you get onto that listing presentation, which can be really, really important. Okay, so that's why we're focusing on seller listing appointments today. On Wednesday, we're going to go over buyer stuff to deal with buyers, but today we're focused only on listing. So Lori, switch us to the next slide. Okay, so this is where we're at. Remember on our first session of Ignite, we went over that there's different activities that you're going to do every day as you sell real estate, and they fall into two separate categories. The grow your business category, which is lead generating for buyers and sellers, right? We went over that last week. It's making seller listing presentations to get listings, which is where we are now. And then we're going to go through making buyer presentations and get listings. We talked a little bit about previewing real estate. So we're at the phase where we are talking about making seller listings. Okay, Lori, switch us to the next slide. Okay, so this is our roadmap for our class today. So we're going to run from 9 to 11 with instruction, and then from 11 to 12 is active lead generation time or question and answer time or role playing time. It's free time for us to use however we want. So we're gonna go over a little bit about how to develop a really strong value proposition for sellers, and then understand how to utilize that in different marketing efforts and when you get on the listing appointment. Then we're going to talk about what to do before the appointment. So how to pre-qualify a seller when you're talking to them to make sure that they're a motivated seller that you want to go on an appointment with. I'm going to give you a few key questions to ask them when you're talking to them so that you can start to understand their motivation and the way that they work. We're going to go through everything you need to do to prepare to go on the listing presentation, including the actual marketing packet, listing presentation packet that you'll want to run through with a seller and the order within which you want to do things. Then we're going to go over the listing appointment. So from start to finish, what do you do when you actually get to someone's house on a listing appointment? Okay, I have a few tricks up my sleeve that I'm going to share with you guys about how to do a listing appointment at a high level, how to build rapport with a seller very quickly so that you can get into a relationship with them. So we're going to go through from start to finish what a really good listing appointment looks like, including how to handle some of the objections that you'll hear from sellers on these appointments. Then we'll do a recap. You can ask me any questions. We'll go over our ahas for the day. So don't forget, every Ignite session, we do ahas at the end of the session. So as you are taking the class and hearing some things, if you hear something that you would like to share as your aha at the end of the session, put a little star next to it or something so that you can recall it back. Here's one other tip I'll share before I dive into the information that has always helped me as I've taken classes like this that have a lot of information involved in them. I know that we're giving you guys a ton of information and a lot of things to do. Anything that you write down in your notes that you would like to take action on in your own personal business, after you write it in the margin, write a little A and circle it. That will help you after the class to go through all your notes, highlight your action items, right? And then you can move your action items onto your to-do list for the day. So just a little tip there. Okay, Lori, bring us to the next slide. All right, so this is a study that was done by NAR, and this was done around how sellers found their agent. So they polled sellers and they asked them, how did you go about finding the real estate agent that you ended up using ultimately? What they found was that the vast majority, 39% of people were referred to their agent by a friend, a neighbor, or a relative. Now, if you remember what I said in our first session last week, what did I say? Your database is the key to your success. It's going to make or break you. And we're seeing that in the numbers here. So 39% of sellers are going to want a recommendation as to who somebody else used when they sold their house. Have you ever gone and needed a new place to get a haircut, or you want to buy a car and you know one of your friends just got a car and you saw them post something about how much they love the car and how easy the process was? aren't you more willing to take that referral from that person who you know, like, and trust, right? If I know, like, and trust John and he just sold his house, I'm going to ask John if he liked his realtor. And if I'm like John and I like John, I'm probably going to use or want to use the same realtor, right? So this goes back to what we were talking about last week, the importance of your database, talking to people and not just asking them if they're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, but making sure that asking who they know that's interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate, right? Now, the rest of the study goes as follows. 27% of agents used the agent previously. So this was a repeat agent, which is great. That's what you want. Those 20% of agents are agents that have people on drip campaigns and are following up with their clients in some capacity so that they're getting that repeat business. 5% of people were personally contacted by the agent. That might be through door knocking or cold calling or some type of personal contact, maybe attending some type of networking event and meeting them, or or going to a fair and going to a table and submitting their information, something like that. 4% of people landed on somebody's internet website, right? And then 3% of people visited an open house and met the agent that they used to list their home there. There's something cut off at the bottom, and that is 22%, and that is made up by other methods, like seeing a for sale by owner open house sign, a referral through another agent, or their employer, direct mail, or social media. So that is another large chunk of the pie right there, is the 22% that falls into other, which here on my handy dandy cheat sheet says that looks like seeing a for sale or open house sign, a referral through another agent or their employer, direct mail, social media, etc.
Rita, is this a better look if I just exited full screen? Is that better?
Yeah, I think for this slide it is, and then you could probably go back to full screen for the next slide. I don't think there's stuff at the, oh, maybe the next one there is too. Yeah, that's fine. That's
I can
good.
leave it here.
Okay. Okay, so this is just reinforcing the idea that your database really is your business. So the amount of people in your database that you're following up with consistently is going to ultimately determine whether or not you're able to build a big business for yourself, and make it easy for yourself. I mean, look at what we're seeing here. Your internet website is 4%. I know there's so many newly licensed agents that I talk to that want this fancy website, and they don't want to post anything on their website until they've built out all these intricate pages onto their website. I'm here to tell you that no consumer cares about a super in-depth website for selling real estate. Keller Williams polled over 1 million consumers and asked them, what do you want your website to look like when you're searching for homes for sale? And this is what they said. They said, I want an easy search function. They didn't say anything about the agent. They don't want the agent's sales stats or anything splashed around. They said, I want the information I want, which is how to search for homes for sale. I want it to be interactive. I want to be able to save searches, and I want it to be intuitive. And that's why our KW websites look like that. That's why our app looks like that, right? I've heard from agents in the past that they want like a whole about me section on the front landing page of their website. Consumers don't want that. They're not interested. They want to be able to search secretly, basically, until they don't want to be secret anymore. And then they want to be able to click a couple buttons and talk to a knowledgeable real estate agent. And that's where you come in, which is why it's, that's one thing, one takeaway that I got from this chart. Okay, Lori, switch us to the next session. Okay, so I know later this week, you're going to learn all about how to develop a value proposition for your business. And this will help you, this little chart. So this chart is showing us what sellers want. And this is again from the NAR 2019 profile on buyers and sellers. You can Google this report. It's the NAR 2019 profile on buyers and sellers. It is many, many, many pages of these questions, charts, and graphs that will tell you a lot of in-depth information about how buyers and sellers interact in the real estate market and what they're interested in. Okay, so this is what sellers want when they're interviewing listing agents to help them. 21% of people want somebody that is going to be able to market their home at a high level. So marketing is super important, right? That is really important. 20% want to make sure that it sells in a certain time frame, right? What that usually boils down to as the top two is that sellers are looking for somebody who can sell their home fast and for the most money possible. If you're taking notes, write that down. When a seller is interviewing me, they're interested in hearing from me how I'm going to sell their home fast and for the most money possible. Okay. 19% want help pricing competitively in the market. That involves that usually integrates into you being an agent that understands the market really well, right? So they want a local real estate agent that's going to help them navigate the market. 20% want to make sure it sells in a certain time frame. 16 want advice on improvements to improve their sales price, and 13% want help finding a buyer. Only 11% of buyers stated that they wanted help with the paperwork and inspections and negotiations, so on and so forth. I will tell you, as a sneak peek for our buyer class, the buyers are the reverse. Most buyers want their agent to help them navigate the contract to close process and provide a high level of customer service through there. Sellers are typically more focused on getting their home sold, getting it going wherever they need to go, and doing it fast. So here's a couple tips with this. This is what you want to base your value proposition around, right? When you're talking to somebody and you're developing an elevator pitch or a 2-line sentence about what you do that helps you stand out in the market, start here. Don't start with some off the wall, like I'm going to be really unique and come up with this unique spin on it to get people to, see the difference between me and the other people. Don't do that. Just start here. They want to know how you're going to market their home, right? And then how are you going to help them sell their home in the amount of time that they need to sell it? So you want to include this in your listing presentation. We'll talk about that a little bit when we're talking about preparing for your listing presentation. Here's another tip. You might write this down. I know as a new agent, a lot of times you're working on developing a bio for your business, right? Your about me. That's going to go on your website. It might go on your Zillow profile, on your social media profiles, your about me. All you need to do in your about me is talk about what you're doing to help sellers list their home fast and for the most amount of money, and then what you're doing for buyers to help them understand and navigate the market to get a good deal on a home, and then walk them through the contract to close process seamlessly. So what you can think about is all of you, if you're newer agents coming into the industry and you're saying, well, I don't have a ton of experience to put in my bio, that's okay. You all have done something in the past, right? So what are your transferable skills? Do you have a background in marketing? Do you have a background? My background before I sold real estate, I was a paralegal in a litigation department. So when I was putting together my real estate bio, I didn't have any sales experience. I wasn't a top producer. I didn't have any of that stuff to list. And so what I listed was that I have litigation experience that allows me to negotiate deals for my buyers that gets them the best price possible. It also allows me to help sellers understand some and be safe when they're selling their home to get to look out for pitfalls that they might fall into, right? I took you all have those transferable skills. Everyone comes into this business with some transferable skills, something that you've done at a previous job or just life experience that you've gained over the years that you can use to turn into your bio about how to put into a value proposition in terms of what sellers want. Use that for your bio when you're working on that and when you're developing your value proposition. And it's important to be able to regurgitate this so that as you're talking to sellers, as you're on listing presentations, you can pull this up pretty quickly and get into talking to sellers about that. So something that when I was new, I typed out and like kind of memorized my little blurb, my little value pitch, right? And I believe in Thursday's class, Beth and Patty are going to walk you through how to develop yours, but this is a good jumping off point. Okay, Patty, Lori, bring us to the next slide. Okay, so you might be thinking, okay, that's all great. And what is the process of listing a home? I've never listed a home before. So what is the actual process, right? And so we're going to walk through each one of these steps here throughout the class. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the pre-listing questionnaire. This is a document that is in the Ignite in Command toolkit. I'm going to share it with you, and we're going to run down it. This is the document that you will want to have printed out as you're lead generating for sellers, because it's going to give you the questions that you want to ask somebody when you're on the phone with them setting an appointment. Okay. Then we're going to talk about how to schedule some tips for scheduling the listing appointment, what a pre-listing packet looks like. That's something that will set you out from your competition, is if you're sending out a pre-listing packet. We're going to go through the Keller Williams pre-listing packet, and I'll show you how to use that at a high level. We will talk a little bit about how to create a listing presentation that touches on seller value propositions that they're looking through, and then what to do on the actual appointment. Okay, Lori, go to the next slide. Okay, so we are now at the point where we are what the work that we need to do before we are going on the appointment. So a lot of the work that you are going to do before the appointment is going to set you up to do the appointment at a very high level. So what you want to do is actually, Lori, if you can stop sharing your screen, I will share mine, and we can go over the pre-listing. Make sure it's up on my screen. Okay, so before we can talk about what to do on a listing presentation, we have to talk about how to set a listing appointment, right? So as you're lead generating, you will come across somebody who says, oh yes, I am interested in listing my home for sale. What you want to do at that point is whip out your handy dandy pre-listing questionnaire. Okay, this is a document that you will find right in Connect. So all of the Ignite materials are right here in Connect, which is kwconnect.com. You're going to use the same login as you did for Command. And then you can search, you can search right here, type in Ignite. And then you want to go to Ignite 2.0 Lab. This is going to give you all the course information you need. If you go over to materials, these are all of the student files. All the participant guides are here. There's also an Ignite toolkit down here. Go in and download this to your computer. It is a ton of really good documents, including this seller listing questionnaire. So I'll show you what it looks like. This has a 411 template, buyer lead sheet that we'll go over next time, checklist for reviewing an offer, your daily 10-4 checklist. There's script books in here, open house job aid, a bunch of an open house sign-in sheet is here. The pre-listing presentation that we're going to go over is in here. The pre-listing questionnaire, which is what we're going to go over right now, is in here, and some other really great tools. So go in here, download your Ignite toolkit so that you have these resources. So one of the things that they have is the pre-listing questionnaire. So in my little binder that I used to keep by my desk, I would have a ton of these just printed out and sitting next to me. I would also have buyer questionnaire sitting next to me. It was like the first system that I put in place, right? So if you remember last time we were talking about systematizing your business, one of the systems you want to create is this like listing system. And one of the easiest ways to do it is through this listing questionnaire. Now I'm going to change some of the questions here. So if you're taking notes, you'll just want to take notes, and you can decide if you want to edit it the same way that I recommend. Okay. So the idea is that you're on the phone with somebody who's thinking about listing their house so that you're getting into the conversation with them. Okay, so the first thing you want to ask once you get into the conversation, you have 5 minutes so I can ask you some very important questions before I come out to meet you, right? So you want to get people's buy-in that they'll stay on the phone and not try to rush you off. Okay, so that's important. Once they say yes, the first question they have here is, how did you hear about me? Okay, here are my thoughts on this question. 9 times, okay, so one of 2 things is going to happen in this scenario. Either you are going to be cold calling somebody, a for sale by owner, an expired, a lead you got from someplace or somewhere else. Do not just blindly go down this sheet and ask them these questions. If you are cold calling somebody, don't ask them how they heard about you. They're going to say, I don't know you. You are calling me, right? So you don't want to do that. So the other type of appointment, a lot of the time, is somebody calling you. So if someone is calling you, you also don't want to, they're typically going to start off the conversation by saying, hi Alina, this is Rita. I got your phone call. I got your name from John, who I know you sold the house to last year. I'm thinking about listing my house. If they say that to you, again, just don't rip out this sheet and start blindly asking them the questions. Don't ask them, how did you hear about me, if they already said how they heard about you. It should be common sense. And yet I do always point it out, because I had this experience once where I was going to buy a car. And at the time I was commuting. I was working at my job I worked at before I sold real estate, where I was commuting an hour and a half both ways down to White Plains. And so I was at the time driving a Volvo, and I wanted to buy a Prius, because this was when gas used to be $5 a gallon, and it was costing me an arm and a leg to travel back and forth. So I had this really nice Volvo that I loved a lot, and it was great, yada, yada. So I walk into the dealership, and the salesperson sits down, and he's like, oh, you know, blah, 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 asking me a bunch of questions. And he asked, and I said, I'm only interested in a Prius. I need something that's going to be better on gas mileage, because I have this really long commute down to Westchester where I work as a paralegal. So I told him all of this information. Oh, he's like, oh no, what you probably want is a car with 4-wheel drive. What do you think about looking at X, Y, and Z, right? He starts trying to sell me on other things. So, well, that you weren't listening, right? You were not listening at all to what the reason why I wanted to drive a Prius. It wasn't so that I could have a car good in the snow. I had a different driving motivation to help me with that. So we go out and we test drive the cars, and we come back in, and we're sitting there, and he doesn't remember a thing I told him about where I work. He starts asking me again, oh, so where do you work? Starts trying to pitch me on other vehicles. Like, totally did not hear any of the context that I had given to him, wasn't listening or paying attention, was caught up in his own head about how he was going to sell me whatever he had in his mind that I wanted. And I learned a lot from that interaction. Number one, I did not buy a car from him. I left and I went to another dealership, and I bought the Prius that I wanted from somebody else. And number two, it just taught me the value of active listening and taking notes, right? People work with people that they like. If they feel like you're listening to them and you're actively engaged in the conversation, and you're not just a robot working through a script or a robot working through a worksheet, you will be able to get into relationship with them a lot quicker. One of the keys as an agent who's newly licensed and maybe going into your first couple listing presentations where you don't have all the flashy sales stats that someone has, is to be able to develop rapport with somebody quickly. I'm here to tell you, sellers will look past being a top producer, having all these sales, all of these things. If you're able to get into a relationship with them quickly and build rapport with them quickly, they will work with you. So I'm going to give you a couple tips on how to do that. And number one is understanding whether or not this first question is applicable to the conversation. Okay. Okay, number two, where are you moving? I think that this is a little bit of a harsh, kind of defensive question. You might be talking to somebody for the first time, right? And they might be still their walls up a little bit. So I have adjusted this question to ask the same thing, but in a different way. And so if you're taking notes, you might want to write down, instead of asking, where are you moving, asking, are you planning on staying in the area? Are you planning on staying in the area? That's a pretty easy, much easier question that people are usually much more comfortable asking. Are you moving someplace local, right? And it's usually yes or no. Yes, great. Will you be buying the house that you move to? If yes, you want to make a note of that, because your goal is to also help them buy their new home, right? If no, I'm planning to relocate to Florida, great. You want to make a note of that. You can refer them to a KW agent in Florida, right? And collect a referral fee from that. So you want to bake that into your listing presentation. So are you planning on staying in the area? Here is another tip, a side note tip. When you are showing homes, sometimes the sellers will not leave and you are in the house with the seller. This is a very good question for them too. are you planning on staying in the area when you move? Most sellers, if you say, why are you moving, are going to get defensive and be like, don't ask, it's none of your business. But almost everybody, when you say, hey, are you planning on staying in the area, is going to start telling you their whole life story. Now you might collect some information that if you're submitting an offer for your buyer, you can use, right, with the offer. We know in this market in particular, if there's multiple offers and there's a seller in the house saying, yeah, we are moving, but we're building a house that's not going to be ready for 6 months. So we're really nervous about where we're going to rent and da, da, da. Okay, great. You might bake into the offer that we can extend the closing out, so because we know the seller is building. Okay, just a little side tip. A good question. So again, the question is, are you planning on staying in the area? Okay, number 3, what's motivating you to move there? I would put a star next to this question. What's motivating you to move there? This is so important. Understand, everyone moves for a reason. Most people are not, well, in this market, some people are just selling to cash out, but I would say the vast majority of people are not selling because they just want to cash out and get a bunch of money in their pocket. Most people are moving for some type of a personal reason, right? They are moving because they want to be closer to family, or they are downsizing, or they're upsizing, or they got a new job, or they lost a job, right? Like there's usually something going on that is driving their motivation to get there. Now, listen, selling a house is very stressful, and there are a lot of bumps that can come up during the time that they are listing their home for sale and selling it. If you understand their actual motivation behind selling a home, it will make it much easier when you get into these situations to keep moving them forward, right, towards their ultimate goal. I can't tell you how many agents I've coached that have come to me and have said, I'm struggling with this seller. I've brought them 4 full asking price offers and they're arguing with me and they don't want to accept them, and they're great offers. Okay, great. My first question is always, why are they selling their home? And I can't tell you how many agents have said, I don't know. Okay, so you have to start there. What is important to them about selling their home? If you know, then, well, you know, it's their home that they've lived in for 40 years and now their kids are out, so they want to downsize, right? Or they want to move to Florida, or they want to do whatever, and you know that, and they're not accepting full asking price offers. Now we have a way that we can structure a conversation with them to help figure out what's actually going on. That conversation could look like, hey, Connie, I know that your ultimate goal was to get down to Florida to be closer to your grandkids. Is that still your goal? Okay, great. How soon would you like to be down there with your grandkids? Oh, by the holidays. Okay, so tell me what's more important, getting X amount of dollars for your home or spending the next holiday with your grandkids down in Florida? If you can help people sort through things, a lot of times there's other stuff going on behind the scenes that's making them hesitant, or that's causing them to act irrationally once you get into the contract to close process. If you know why they're selling their home, right, then you can help work with them as situations arise. So you want to definitely get that information and really cement it to memory, because it will help you down the line. It will also help you if you want to bring that back up during the listing presentation, talking about building rapport with people, understanding why they're selling, what their big why is around moving is important. Okay, the next question after that is, how soon do you need to be there? This is a super important question. How soon do you need to be in Florida? How soon do you need to be in your new home? This is a super important question, because this is going to gauge whether or not you ultimately set an appointment with them right now, or if there's somebody that you should just be following up with until they get closer to their timeline, right? So based on their response, you're going to rank these people as either an A, a B, or a C seller. An A seller is someone who is able, ready, and willing to list their home in the next 14 days, wants their house on the market as soon as possible. A B seller is somebody who is able, ready, and willing to do business in 15 to 60 days. So 2 weeks to 2 months. That's somebody that's a B seller. A C seller is somebody who's willing to do business, but isn't looking to list their home for more than 60 days. So somebody that's an A or B seller are people that you're likely going to set an in-person listing appointment with right away. Somebody that is a C seller is someone that you can still set a listing appointment with. The listing appointment might just look differently. So somebody that I've come up with, that I would come across that was thinking about listing their home more than 2 or 3 months out, I would say to them, okay, so the market's moving really rapidly. And so I would love to still set a time to come over and meet you and look at your home. Hey, let me ask you, a lot of times, by the way, the sellers are waiting because they want to do work to the house, right? They want to paint, they want to spruce things up, they need to declutter. Okay, so would it be helpful if I stopped by your house for 20 minutes this week and took a look and walked through with you? Because sometimes what I found is that the project sellers are intending to do are not the ones that will help them maximize money or that it will be most important to buyers. And so sometimes I can save you money on that, right? And or sometimes you're planning to do something that I advise that you should divert and do something different, or sometimes I just confirm that you're on the right track. And then I get a chance to see the house in person so that I can keep an eye on the market, so that as the market continues to change over the next 2 months, I'll have a really great eye on how we should price it, right? That's one of the things sellers are looking for once the time is right. Okay, so that's like an appointment setting with the C buyer. Okay, so that's what you want to do. You want to figure out how motivated they are to be there, and then you want to put them into your pipeline accordingly in command. You can rank them and tag them in command so that you can see, right, their motivation and remember when to follow up with people. Now, here's the next question. If we sell your home in the next 30 days, will that pose a problem for you? For some people, that really will pose a problem for them. They're building a house and the house isn't built yet. They can't move until they're getting a job promotion and their job doesn't start for 3 months, or they're getting a new job, right? They really don't want to move. Their daughter's having a baby and they promised they'd stay with the daughter for at least 3 months and before, moving, right? Like there's all of these things that come up. These are the questions that you want to ask somebody up front. So if we sell your home in the next 30 days, will that pose a problem for you? Here's a hint. If they say yes, but then they want you to list their home right away, do you think this is somebody that's going to come up with all sorts of issues when you get them a bunch of offers? Right? So if we don't ask this question and we just go and they go, okay, list the home for sale. And in their mind, they're going, I have at least 3 months. And you get them a cash offer that wants to close in 30 to 45 days, which in this market is not uncommon. And all of a sudden now this is a huge issue for them. And you don't know any of this. Could that look like them declining offers, right? Not being willing to negotiate on the home inspection, not being willing to accommodate different things, dragging their feet on signing the contracts, right? All of these weird things that start popping up down the line. It's usually because something is off with their timeline or their plans that they're trying to work through, right? So this is important. If we sell your home in the next 30 days, will that pose a problem with you? If they say yes, you really do have to gauge if you need to walk them through whether or not actually getting their home on the market right now makes sense for them, right? That might look like explaining to a seller, okay, so what we're seeing now in the market is that in your area, days on market is 45 days, which means to get under contract, it's going to take us about 45 days. Even with a cash offer, it's probably another 30 days to get to a closing, at least 30 to 45 days. So all in total, you're probably looking at a minimum of 2 months with a cash offer to 3 to 4 months if you have financing from the time we list your house to the time that we move. So is that in line with your plans? If not, then and if they're like, no, we can't move for at least 6 months. Okay, great. So what I want to do then is schedule a time to stop by for 15 minutes and go through that full script I just went through with you guys, right? And blah, 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 blah. We'll talk about when the right time to list your home is, right? It might also just involve following up, being like, okay, well, so what I'm hearing is that it might not be the best time right now to list your home. Would it be okay if I followed up with you in another month and we checked in to see how things are going? So these things are important to understand. This is how you start to build a pipeline of people that you're following up with on a daily basis. If you're doing your daily 10-4, adding 10 new names to your database, following up with 10 names in your database, well, some of those follow-ups should be these people that you're talking to. So did you talk to somebody in June that said, call me back in September? Well, here's a hint. If somebody tells you to call them back in September, don't call them in September, call them in August. You have to call them before they are ready. I would recommend like half of the time. So if somebody says, call me in 3 months, call them in a month and a half. And what you want to say to them isn't, hey, list your home now, because they're going to be like, I told you 3 months. What you want to say is, hey, John, I remember we talked back in June and you're planning on listing your house in September. I just want to check in quick to make sure that we're still on track to talk mid-September. Does that still work for you? I can't tell you how many times that I've had that conversation and they've said, no, actually things sped up, or thank you so much for checking. Actually, now it's looking like October or November, right? I will tell you a story. I was doing this one time. I was in my follow-up during my lead gen and I texted a seller. I had gone, this is this exact scenario that I'm telling you right now. I talked to them in March. They lived in New Windsor. They wanted to sell their house and they were going to build a house in North Carolina. So I talked to them in March. They were like, we're not interested in listing the house until September. I said, no problem. They said, we're going to do a bunch of work between now and then. I said, great, let me come by and make sure you guys are on target with what you want to do, or give you some tips if you're not, the whole spiel that I just gave you. So I went over to the house. I did a full listing presentation with them there, right? Not a full listing presentation. I went through all the work they were going to do. We talked a little bit about the market. It was a good conversation. They said, okay, follow up with us in September. So August 1st, they're on my follow-up to-do list. I text the guy, hey, whatever his name, I don't even remember his name. Hey, John, I'm just following up, making sure we're still on track to talk in September. How's the house build coming in North Carolina? Looking forward to seeing the work that you've done at the house. Simple. He calls me the next day and says, Rita, this is crazy. I have to admit, our neighbor sold their house with a different real estate agent and he got them multiple offers and sold over asking. So my wife insisted that we interview the other agent. We both wanted to work with you, but we just felt like we should hear from somebody who had just listed our neighbor's house and had had these great results. I was sitting at my kitchen table with the other agent when your text message came in. And I would have signed the listing paperwork with that agent had you not texted me. And by the way, I would have been if I had not followed up with him a little bit earlier, I would have just seen the house pop on the market and would have been like, oh my God, they told me not to check in with them till September. He said, we're seeing it as a sign that we liked you better anyway, and that we should, that even though this person lists a lot of stuff in the neighborhood, New Windsor was not my target area. I list houses in Ulster County. This is Orange County, that we needed to sit down and talk to you again. Okay, great. Can you stop by the house this week? No problem. I'll be right there. I'm like, oh, and instead of being like, oh, how dare you? I was like, oh, that's so funny. See? It's the stars have aligned to list your home with me, right? And there he was like laughing, blah, blah. Anyway, I get to the house and they're like, yeah, no, really, like the agent was really pushy. They were trying to push the listing paperwork on me, right? Being a good agent, trying to close the listing. And we didn't do it because your call came in right then. So you want to know what somebody's motivation is and what their timeline is so that you can follow up with them appropriately, right? As the process goes. By the way, I ended up listing the house. I got them multiple offers and sold the house for $30,000 more than this agent was telling them that she was going to be able to get them. So it all worked out for everybody's benefit in the end. And it was like, wow, this, really is true. All these things I'm saying really do in real life, happen. Okay, now here's the reverse of that question, which is the next question you want to ask. What would happen if your home did not sell? This is going to give you a peek into how motivated somebody actually is. What would happen if your home didn't sell? If you hear nothing, we just would stay here and live here until we could get our price. So, great. Now you know you're not working with a super motivated seller. Okay. If you hear, well, that's not an option. Like we have to get to California in 3 months. Okay, great. Now you know you're working with a super motivated seller that you can probably set a very competitive listing price with and get them to agree to it, because you know that there's no contingency of this house not selling. So you also want to know that going into it. Number 7, I would totally cross out, just being honest. Number 7 is, how much do you want to list your home for? I would not ask this question. It opens up so many just issues when you get onto the listing appointment. What you could ask is, do you have an idea of what your home might be worth? Okay, can you tell me what that is? Great, I'll be preparing a comparative market analysis for us to go over at our appointment. That's gonna either confirm that or show us what's actually happening in the market. So you might ask that, right? Sometimes it's totally shoots yourself in the foot. I had a listing referral once. It was a KW agent. He called me and said, hey, I have this guy. I just talked to him. He wants to list a house in Modena. He needs to list it for $275,000. I asked him how much he wanted to list the house for, and that's what it was. It was like a $230,000 house. And this was not in this market where you're like, well, let's try it. This was in a buyer's market. So just like dead in the water. And so then I'm calling as the next agent in line, not next agent, but as the referring agent. This other realtor had lined them up that that's no problem without knowing the market, and it created a lot of issues. So I generally avoid, how much do you want to list your home for? What I will ask is, instead of how much do you owe on the property? Again, that's a little bit harsh. Sometimes you'll get people that will say that's none of your business. You might ask instead, do you know how much you owe on the property? Sometimes people will say no, right? If they say no, okay, no problem. Do you have mortgages on the property or home equity lines of credit? If they say yes, great. So before we meet, between now and when we meet, you might want to call the institutions or look up online if you have a portal, or look at your most recent statement and figure out what your outstanding balance is on that, because we're going to go over the finances and what you could potentially take home when I sell your house. When I sell your house, right? Okay, great. So you want to ask them if they know how much. Sometimes when you say, do you know how much you owe on the property? They're like, yeah, I owe $200,000. And then you know the amount. Now we ask this because we do want somebody to know. We do need to know, number one, in our listing agreements, there's a lien disclosure, right? So we need to fill that out on the listing agreements for Lori, right? Who checks everything for compliance. So we want to make sure we know that. The other part of it is that we want to make sure that somebody is understanding how much they're going to net after they close on their home and what their closing costs are going to be. So the sellers pay the realtors commissions. That's their biggest closing cost, is the realtors commissions. The sellers are also going to pay a transfer tax, right? Just $4 for every $1,000 that changes hands. The sellers are also going to pay for their attorney. Okay, so they need to take these things into consideration in addition to any mortgage or lien payoffs that they need to pay in order to see how much they're actually going to net on the sale of their home. And you need to know that too, because again, if right now it's an interesting market where people can list homes for high prices and get it. The market will shift at some point and it will cool off at some point. And you want to make sure that people aren't so leveraged that if they're coming to the table with cash, that they understand that. And or you might be able to help them set expectations when you get into the negotiation phase of things, in terms of how much can they really negotiate to still be able to walk away with the number that they want. Okay, so number 9 is, I'll be sending you a packet of information. Will you take a few minutes to review it before we meet? And we're going to go over that pre-listing packet. Now, and I'll tell you some good tips with the pre-listing packet. Do you have any questions before we meet? Right? Now, here's the key with this one. Do you have any questions before we meet? What is the most common thing that you guys think you will hear from somebody when you say, do you have any questions before we meet? Okay, here's what I hear most. What commission do you charge? People want to like cut right to it. A lot of people, some people. What commission do you charge? How's Keller Williams gonna help me get my home sold? How many homes have you sold in my neighborhood? What's your whatever other questions like that. Here's the key. Your goal on the phone is not to objection handle or do the listing presentation with somebody on the phone. Your goal on the phone is to set the appointment. This is important when you're thinking about lead generation. Your goal when you're lead generating is not to do listing presentations and buyer consultations over the phone. Your goal is to set an appointment. That's it. So anytime you hear, what is your commission structure? How long do you do listing agreements for? What is all of these questions, right? That's a great question. That's exactly why we should meet. I promise we will go over all of that. Are you available on Tuesday or Thursday? I'm available at 12 or 2. That's a great question, right? If it's something like that, that you, that's like really something you would be better off handling face to face with somebody after you've built rapport with them and can handle it in person. That's a great question. You always want to start with, that's a great question or good question, or, that's great. And that's exactly why we need to meet. Does blah, blah, blah work or blah, blah, blah work for you? Okay, number 11 is, will all decision makers be there when we meet? This is seller trick number 101. This is basic seller psychology. They all will try to do this. They will set the appointment with you, and then the husband or the wife will be there, but both won't be there, right? Because they know that it's an easy out. If they both have to commit to it, their easiest out at a listing presentation is to say, well, my husband's really the decision maker, so thank you so much. I'm going to review all of this with him when he gets home later from work, and we'll let you know. It's the easiest out that sellers have, and they use it all the time. Okay, so that's why will all the decision makers be there when we meet? Now, here's the other reason why you want this. Number one, there is typically a decision maker when you're looking at a couple. Okay, so if you're in a situation where it's a couple, or say it's an estate and you have all the siblings that need to buy the house, or whatever it is, right? Whoever is going to make a decision about selling the house needs to be able to be at the listing presentation, assuming that they're local and it's possible. Number one, because you want to determine who the actual decision maker is going to be. And sometimes you assume it's going to be like the husband and it's actually the wife. Or sometimes you assume that it's going to be this sister and it's that sister, or whatever it is, right? You want all decision makers there. Number two, you're going to ask them to sign paperwork. And so they need to have all the decision makers there so that you can close them to sign the paperwork at the listing presentation, so that you get them to close, to be able to move forward with using you as a listing agent. You can't close somebody, get them to sign something if half of the party isn't there, right? It gives them an automatic out. So you always want to ask, will all the decision makers be there when we meet? Going back to number 10 for just one second. Okay, do we have any questions before we meet? Assuming that they're just generalized questions, not stuff that you want to just save for the listing presentation, answer the question and then ask what else, until they say, I don't have anything else. Okay, this is also a good tactic for working with buyers when you're on showings. Okay, here's the questions we're going to ask these sellers about their house. Anything else? Is there anything else? No. Okay, great. Once they say no, subconsciously, their mind has closed out the conversation, and they feel, even if they do have a bunch of other questions, there's something subconscious that allows them to close the loop and then get ready for the appointment. It also helps you understand what is actually rattling around in their brains, right? You'll get a good read from people, because the first question is always going to be something superficial, top of the skimming, like skimming the water, basic. What else? They'll say something else. Okay, great. What else? Awesome. What else? And then you might get 2 or 3 levels deep into them starting to really ask you, so what's going to happen if we don't, if we get an offer, right? What's going to happen if X, Y, and Z happens? You'll start to understand what their psychology is around what's going on right then, and where they're at in terms of selling their home. Okay, so then what you want to do is at the end, right? There's a number of ways you can close for the appointment. What you don't want to do is say when works for you. Don't do that. Don't do when's works for you. I'll come over whenever. I could be there in 5 minutes. That's not going to help you with your time blocking, right? So we talked about the importance of doing a schedule and lead generating first thing in the morning. Don't set appointments first thing in the morning. That's your lead generation time, right? So here is the simplest close that I use to a lot of success. I have availability, blank time or blank time. Which does one of those work for you? Which one of those works for you? It's I forget what it's called, but it's basically give them two options that both fit within your appointment time block section in your calendar, right? So they have that information they can pick. If neither of those times, pick something else that works for you. You take control over when you do your appointments. If you start off with, I'll come over whenever, you're going to start getting all haywire once you start setting all these appointments, because, and I guarantee your lead gen time is going to end up getting scheduled over. And then after the appointment, you're not going to go back and do it, right? So just protect that time and then understand when during the week you can fit in listing appointments. You want to tell them, just so you know, our meeting will take between blank and blank minutes. You might also add in, and I have an appointment right after that. So I'm going to arrive promptly at 12 and we'll wrap up promptly at 1 o'clock, if that's okay with you. Okay, some people will try to keep you hostage in their house for 100 hours. If you set it up that way, then as when it's 12:45 and the person's still talking to you, you can make a decision, right? A game day decision, whether or not it's important to stay in this conversation or do you need to pull out? Okay, if you remember when we were talking, I do have my appointment at 1, I have to be out of here by 1 o'clock. So let's get to blah, 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 right? And then I look forward to meeting you on blank at blank. Okay, so you've had a pretty good conversation now with somebody on the phone ready to set a listing appointment. Is it better than, oh, you're thinking about selling your house? Great, can I come out and look at the property on Tuesday at 12? Do you get much more information you doing this by doing it this way and actually starting to build rapport with somebody through this sheet? Yes? Any questions about how to use this sheet effectively? Comments?
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, who, me?
Yes, you. Yep, go ahead.
Hi. I have a question about the last one. Will all decision makers be there when we meet? What if they will say no for some reason? Then how are we gonna go to appointment anyways, or we should reschedule, or how we handle that?
I would typically say, okay, no problem. So let's pick a time when all the decision makers can be present.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Connie, what's your question?
I was just going to say that questions 10 and 11 seem to me to be sort of a turnoff to getting the listing, because sometimes people want to, say, have the wife show you around and do all the preliminaries, and the husband will just say, okay, well, I'll sign the papers after, or something like that. And I just think that if you put them in a position where you say, I have to come when everybody's there to make a decision, it makes them feel too pressured up front. And they're not going to feel as comfortable with it. Where if they feel like, okay, you can come out, meet with the wife, look at the house, so on. And if she wants to list with you, okay, well, your husband can sign the papers later and we'll take care of everything then. And I'll get you up on the internet, get your listing out there. But
Sure. So what it sounds like there is that the husband is not a decision maker.
well, maybe he has to sign the papers, but maybe he doesn't want to be bothered with the time it takes to show you through the house and all that kind of preliminary stuff.
Sure.
He's going to make the final decision. Oftentimes, husbands are busy working and they figure, well, my wife can show the realtor through the house and do all that preliminary stuff, and then I can sign.
Yeah. So I would probably ask a follow-up question. So if I meet with you and you decide you want to work with me, your husband's just going to be signing the paperwork, or is he also going to want to meet with me to go over everything. I would just give them the option, right? And if they say, oh no, then well, I'm going to meet with you first, then we're going to meet with, then he's going to want to meet with, okay, so probably makes more sense for us all to meet together. So what works best for your husband's schedule? If they say, oh no, you know, it's fine. Whatever I say, my husband doesn't want to be involved, but he's on the title, so he's just going to sign. Great. So you're the only decision maker then in the household? Yes. Great. Okay.
Well, a lot of women aren't going to tell you they make the decisions, but we all know that most houses are bought by the wife, not by the husband. He may pay for it, but if she's not happy, he doesn't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it shifts around based on the person. So it's just, you have to ask, you might have to ask a couple clarifying questions to figure out what the best circumstances. You know, if it's, you know, my partner and I make all of our decisions together, then you're wasting your time to go meet with one person if you're going to have to redo the appointment for the second person. And if their situation is where, oh no, I'm the person that usually makes the decisions, and my partner's just going to go along with whatever I decide, then you can make you know, like an executive decision if it makes the most sense to meet with them. The goal is not to give them that out, which, Connie, I'm sure you've heard before, right? You've been selling real estate for a long time of, hey, oh, that's really great. And I'm going to have to go over all this with my husband when he gets home, and we'll get back to you. So sometimes that's unavoidable. And if you can ask a couple clarifying questions and get everybody in the room, or determine that the people not there aren't actually going to be involved in making the decision, you could be in a much better spot when you're asking them to like agree to list with you at the end of the appointment. Carol, did you have a question?
Yes. What if someone confides in you when they're talking about their time frame, that part of the time that they're taking has to do with the fact that they're interviewing other listing agents? What's your very best pitch if that happens?
I would just say, great. So can we meet at blah, blah, blah time and blah, blah, blah time? That's it. And just still set the appointment. When you're talking to them on the phone, again, the goal is just to get the appointment, to get in person. And then when we get to the part where we're role playing the listing presentation, there are certain ways that you can structure that presentation so that you're dropping in things along the way, even if they are interviewing, you know, other agents to help with that.
I guess what I'm asking is there something right at that point that's going to make you stand out above the other people, other agents?
Well, probably not without going into a whole listing presentation, right?
Right. Got it.
So you want to just set the appointment with them, and then at the appointment go, you know, show them what the benefit would be to working with them as the agent.
Okay.
Because the other thing too is you have to be careful. This is probably your first conversation with somebody. So you also don't want to come across as if you think they're doing something wrong, or like something that they're telling you you're like arguing against them about. So if they say, okay, great, yeah, we're interviewing a few different realtors, great, I'm so happy to be considered in that. So I'd love to stop by at blah, blah, blah time or blah, blah, blah time. Which one of those works for you?
Got it.
Awesome. That's a good question. John.
Yeah, I hear you about the appointment setting time, because I set appointments for people all day, and it's not good to give them a lot of choices.
Anyone that's ever set an appointment with me knows I usually give you 2 choices. And then if you come back and say no, then you get a link to my calendar, and then you can open up all of my available time and pick a slot, because I've already blocked off when I'm not available, right?
Yeah.
John, what question do you have?
Yep, I just want to go over number nine again. It's about the information packet. I missed if there were, if you could just go over quickly that bullet point again, and if there's any like nuggets that I should have, that would be good.
What, in terms of what's in the packet?
Just in general. So I'll be sending you the packet. What types of, not about the packet, but like what kind of responses I got distracted while we're going over that one, so I may have missed what you said there. So I was just
okay.
wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to probably email them a packet, a pre-listing packet. That's going to be the next thing that we go over, is what the pre-listing packet is. And so it's pretty simple. I'll be sending you a packet of information. Can you give me your email? I'll email it over to you. Now, that's a good way to collect their email address, right?
Mhm.
And then you're asking, will you take a few minutes to review it before we meet? Now, when we get into the pre-listing packet, this is going to give you a little snapshot into the mind of your seller about whether or not they actually review it or not. It's going to start to tell you a little bit about their personality and the way that they function in the world, about how they react with this pre-listing packet. And we're going to go in the next section into some of the psychology around the pre-listing packet. Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Lori, I saw you come back on camera with something you wanted to add.
No, I was just going to let you know there were hands raised.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Okay, I have a bonus for this sheet. So if you're taking notes, write this down. Here's the bonus question when you're on having this conversation. You want to ask them to describe their home to you. You could say it as, can you tell me a little bit about your home? Can you describe your home for me? Okay. This is super important because one of the things you're going to do to get ready is you're going to prepare a CMA. So you kind of, want to know what they're going to point out to you, right? You'll hear improvements that they've made. You might hear like all different things about the house. So you want to ask them to describe the home. And there's two benefits to asking this question. Number one is because you're getting some information on the home that you can use for the CMA. Number two is we're talking about what we're going to move into talking about is how to build rapport with a seller to get into relationship with them quickly. And so part of doing that is understanding that every person in the world has a different personality profile, and there's no good or bad personality profiles. There's just different profiles for each person. There is a very easy scale that you can use when you are looking at talking to somebody and building rapport with them. And it's called the DISC profile, D-I-S-C. It's an acronym. Okay. So everybody typically is high on one or two personality traits and lower on one or two personality traits. Okay. There's tons of stuff you can learn online about DISC profiles. I actually teach a great class that's on our YouTube thing about DISC profiles that will help you understand each one and how to interact with people. Here's what is an easy cheat sheet when you ask somebody, can you please describe your home for me? Okay. Somebody that is going to be a high D personality is going to be short and straight to the point with facts about the house and typically how it sets them apart from other homes on the block. So somebody with a high D personality is a driver, okay? Those are the people, a lot of times they're executives, they're salespeople. Most salespeople have high D personalities. They're people that are in charge of things, or like the mom that's in charge of the household and like has all the kids organized and in practice and like everything is prepared and all of these they're constantly like driving their business forward, their life forward. They're going to be short, straight to the point with facts about the house. So from them, you might hear, oh, we have a 3,000 square foot house. It's the nicest house on the block. We have the best kitchen, because I know you're going to pull the comps from our neighbor who just sold their house for $500,000, but we also have a pool and we have granite and we have a bigger backyard than them, blah, 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 blah. You're going to hear from them about ways that their home sticks out, is the best. And it's usually going to be short, sweet, to the point. They're not going to go on and on and on. Okay. So you want to write down what they're doing, right? And if that's how they sound, they might be a high D personality. Somebody that is a high I, the I stands for influence. Somebody with a high I personality is the person who is going to be like life of the party, the social butterfly, right? The person that wants to be friends with everybody, or that when they walk in the room, they are friends with everybody, right? They have a high level of influence over other people. A lot of times what you're going to hear these people describe their home in is in terms of how they entertain. So you will hear things like, we have a huge dining room that fits 18 people and we always host Thanksgiving. We have an amazing backyard where we do 4th of July barbecues every year and we can see the fireworks from the river. We have a great man cave downstairs where the guys watch Super Bowl Sunday and it's really awesome. We buzz it up. You're going to hear things come out. They'll tell you about their house in the way that they have entertained or have been social within their home. Okay. Somebody that is an S, that is the steady or stable type of person. Okay, now here's something to note. This isn't, it's not a generalization, but it is kind of a generalization. The largest percentage of people, the population, are high S and high C personalities. The largest percentage of realtor populations are high Ds and high Is. They're salespeople. They like being around people. They want to be the life of the party. They're into like, say, you know, doing all the things and being out and networking and working with people, right? You get into the business because you like to work with people. If this sounds like you have to realize most of the time you're going to be talking to people that are the opposite of that. And so if you go into a listing presentation, this conversation, whatever else you're doing in as a driver, trying to be a high I, life of the party person, you will lose some of the S's and the C's because they're going to view you as being totally opposite of what they're comfortable with. I don't want to get too detailed into this because I know it can get overwhelming. All of this is to say that you want to some extent understand people's different personality profiles so that you can mirror and match and kind of meet them where they're at so that they feel like you're speaking their language, which is ultimately going to allow you to build rapport with them quickly and get into relationship with them quickly. Okay, so somebody that is a high S personality, they are the stable, steady people, right? Those are the people that are really dependable. They're good at systems, they're good at models, and you will hear from them that they're a lot of times they're family or people oriented. And so what you're going to hear from them is that is how they lived in the home. So it might be like, you know, we have this beautiful breakfast nook area where I drink tea every morning and it's just great. Or my kids really love the swing set we put up. It's only a year old. Or we bought the house, you know, 3 years ago because we were having our second kid and we needed more space and we've enjoyed it that way. A lot of times from the high S personalities, you're going to hear from them about how they've enjoyed the home, how their family has enjoyed the home, things of that nature. Okay, so then your high C personality is somebody that is your like the accountants of the world. They are facts and figures, and that's what they're going to be most concerned with. So somebody that's a high C personality, you might hear from them. This is what the conversation will probably go. So tell me a little bit about your house. And they're going to go, okay, it's 2,000 square feet. It's 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. We have half an acre. Our taxes are $8,500. We're in the New Paltz School District. What else do you need to know? Like in their mind, they're just like, she just wants the stats, like the numbers, the stats. We bought it for this amount. We put in this amount, right? And you're just gonna hear like straight line exactly what it is. So you want to write down whatever they're telling you, right? And then make some determination about where on the disc profile they might fall. Okay. Any questions about this? It's a skill. It is a skill. It takes a little bit to get to understand what's what there. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and then Lori, if you want to share your screen again, we'll go back into the PowerPoint.
Rita, could I respectfully request a 5-minute break at this time to use the facilities?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, so it's 10:16. We'll be back at 10:21. So take a 5-minute break. Sure. And if anyone has any questions while we're on the break, feel free to come off mute and ask. See, I'm a high D personality, so I'm like, let's go. Come on, we're just gonna rip through this. Lori's like, they might need a break.
Actually, for the personality, the DISC personality,
Mhm.
what resources do you have? So as we continue to have these conversations with more people, where can we learn more about how to engage with the different personalities and best position ourselves?
I will put a link to one of the classes that I taught on it into the chat. There are a lot of Tony Robbins has a DISC assessment. Usually one of the things that is helpful when you're starting to study DISC is to know what yours are, right? So you need to be self-aware first. So when I took the DISC, I was a high D and high I personality. And I would notice when I would go on presentations or work with buyers that weren't like me, if I was coming in with like really high energy and like excited and talking super fast, like sometimes I have a tendency to do. There's some people that were like, cool, that's great. And then some people, you could just see that they were like, this is overwhelming. Like, I don't know, you're out of your mind, right? So it is helpful when you're talking to the person that if this sheet takes you like 5 to 7 minutes to get through, they're probably a high D, high I. If it takes you like a good 20 minutes and they're telling you stories as it goes along, and each thing is like this long, and they're talking kind of slowly about it and really methodically, more than likely they're going to be an S, closer to an S or a C personality, which again, there's no right or wrong way, right? It just might mean that then when you get on the listing presentation, that you have to consciously slow yourself down. So if you know you're somebody that talks fast, is really excitable, can kind of, and that's not how these people are, you probably need to make a conscious effort to slow yourself down so that they are not feeling overwhelmed when you get into the conversation. And the reverse is true. If you're somebody who is an S or a C and feels like you're very methodical and you like to explain in a lot of detail each thing, and so your comfort level with a listing presentation is to sit and go through every page like really in depth, and you get into a meeting with a high D or a high I, you are going to drive them insane because they're going to be like, get to the point. Like, how are you going to sell my house fast for the most amount of money? I don't care about your CMA. I just want to know, like, one, the high I is going to be like, I want to know that I like you, that we're going to be able to hang out during this, and that you're going to like help, network my home in a big way. The D is going to want to hear about your sales stats because they're like the drivers, and that's it. If you start getting into a bunch of long-winded stuff, you're gonna drive them nuts, right? So, and again, it's not a right or wrong way. It's just it's part of sales, is like mirroring and matching the other person. And so I know sometimes when we say that, it sounds like weird to think like, well, what am I supposed to do? Mold myself into what they're doing? No, that's not really it. It's just kind of doing your presentation in a way that their brain is going to receive it, so that you're the one that they're getting into relationship with.
Yeah.
Okay. Back and grateful. Thank you.
Okay, do we want to get started? See, I know, just get started. Okay, I want to make sure we get through all the information. We might go into 11 o'clock a little bit, which is going to be our lead gen time anyway. Is it okay if we go into 11 and take a little time? I want to make sure we get through everything we need to get through. Okay, so now you've done a great job. You've set the appointment, right? You've gone through, you have your little sheet of ammo to fill out. And now you hung up and you've set yourself a listing appointment, and then you're probably thinking, oh crap, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. At least that's what I was thinking when I set my first listing appointment. Now I have to actually go there and do it. Oh geez. All right, let's figure this out. So here's what you want to do after you set the appointment to get ready. Number one, what you want to do is go onto the MLS and look up the property address and see if it's been listed before. Okay. The property's been listed before, you're going to get a bunch of intel on it. You might learn that it was just listed and what price it was listed at, right? Which could give you a gauge at, especially in this market, if it's expired, that's way too high of a price for that property, right? So you might be having to objection handle that. You might see an old listing. Maybe they had their house listed 5 years ago when we were in a buyer's market and it expired, or you can find the listing from when it sold, right? From when these people bought the house 10 years ago or whatever it is. So you want to go on the MLS and you want to look at the listing. If you can find an old listing, sometimes you can find some helpful information about the house that as a new agent or an experienced agent, you might not automatically pick up on. So one of the first listing presentations I went on ever, I pulled up the listing in the MLS and I read on it that the floors were bamboo flooring. It was an old listing. The house had expired and it said bamboo flooring. Well, when I was newly licensed, I didn't know a thing about bamboo flooring. I couldn't have picked it out of a lineup. I didn't know anything about it. But now I had this little nugget of information that this house has bamboo flooring. So I wrote that down in my notes. I would also write down like roof, 6 years old, new furnace, all of this information. Now the seller doesn't know that I'm doing this, right? So now when I get on the listing presentation and I walk in and I'm like, oh man, these are beautiful floors. They look like bamboo? Are they bamboo? Yes, they are. Okay, so now you're automatically setting up in the seller's mind, oh, this is somebody that's super knowledgeable about home stuff. Like she knew my floors are bamboo. She was able to, oh, your roof looks like it looks really new. Like, was it like between 5 and 10 years old? Yeah, oh, yeah, it is. It's 6 years old. Oh, that's amazing, right? So if you're feeling like I'm newly licensed, I'm going to walk into somebody's house and they're going to ask me all these questions and then look at me like, well, what do you know? You're brand new, right? Some of these little tidbits that you can drop, these little crumbs will help in the seller's minds to set the tone that you are knowledgeable about homes, you're knowledgeable about different things going to homes. So that's one of the good things that you'll get. So you get a couple things from looking up the MLS listing. You'll get the history, right? You'll get to see, has it been on and off the market with 100 agents, right? What would that might tell us? It could tell us a couple of things, right? Either they fire agents really quickly, or they might be difficult to work with. I mean, it could tell you 100 different things. You'll see a whole bunch of stuff there with the MLS listing. Now, in addition to that, you also want to go onto the local tax information. So if you're in Ulster County or Greene County, you can go into Ulster County Information Services or Greene County Information Services, and you can pull up the sales history. You can pull up the tax information. You can pull up the inventory for the house that will show you if there is a shed listed, if there's a pool listed, right? Certain things will be listed under the inventory section that you kind of want to cross-check for when you get to the house to see, is there a shed listed there that is unpermitted potentially, right? So you get an idea. You can also pull up on Ulster County Information Services a map of the property so you can kind of see how the property lines go, right? So you want to write down all of this information, the sale history. In Realist, you can pull up in Realist Tax, they will list out the mortgages on file with the county clerk so you can get an idea of how much money they may owe on the property, right? It'll also give you a good sense if they say we have no liens on the property, and you see there that there's like a home equity line and a first mortgage and a second mortgage, right? Oh, okay, no problem. So, so now I'm concerned because I think that the tax company has these liens listed. So if were these liens that you had prior owner, this might be something that you have to close out if you're saying that you don't have these as active liens on the property, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to do some of that little recon, right? Make some notes. You're also going to complete a CMA. So a CMA is comparative market analysis. This class, we're not going to delve into that. There is a class of Ignite that will teach you how to do a CMA at a high level. So you're going to want to do a CMA for the property. And then you're going to want to get together your marketing presentation. So in Command, you can pull up, there are templated listing presentations in Command that you can customize. Actually, Lori, can you stop sharing your screen for a second and I'll share mine because I have it pulled up. Okay, So if you're in commands, hopefully everyone's been in command at least once. This is your menu. You want to go down to designs. Designs is where you will create any marketing materials, always going to be created in designs. And then you just go over here, create a design. The listing presentations are under the print section, right? So it's something you'd print out. You can hit continue. And then it's going to load up and I'll show you where to find them. You should go in and create your own customized listing presentation. If you are in North and you want just a generic listing presentation, you can email Haley and Haley can give you just our standard office one. And I would recommend also customizing your listing presentation, right? So this is really the document you're going to give to the people to show them that you are the person that they should list their home under. So it is in, I think it's business page. Where is it? Listings. It's under listings. You go into listing presentation. And these are all the templates. So there's 5 different templates to choose from. Say you like this one best, you just click use. I'm not going to go through how to edit or use designs. If you need assistance with this, ask your ASC, your agent services coordinator. So Steven, Dan, Haley, whoever's in your office. And they will help you understand how to actually use this. But these are all of the listing pages and they're really nice. They're beautiful. They were done by somebody who gets paid to create marketing materials. So they're gonna look nicer than probably anything I would hobble together on my own, right? Like they really are nice looking things that you can add in to create your listing presentation. And then you wanna save it. So what I did when I was doing listing presentations is I would go in and Laura, you can share your screen again. So what I would do is I would create 2 separate things. I would do my generalized listing presentation that pretty much everyone got like the same listing presentation. And then I would have a second document that would be the CMA that I would hand to them. And in that way, I would be able to create the listing presentation beforehand and have like a stack of them at my house. Now, this is what I would do once I created the listing presentation. I would have them printed at a print shop like Staples I lived in New Paltz, so I would go to PDQ right in New Paltz with a little bit of a thicker paper, like a nice paper. I would have however many listing presentations my economic business model said I needed to go on. I would print that amount and I would have them all bound. You can make a decision about whether or not this is in your budget, but I would have them bound at the print shop with a clear cover on the front, a black cover on the back, so that it looked like a little booklet. Okay. And it wasn't cheap. It was like, it's like, you know, $20 to do that for one. And so if I said for that quarter, I was going to go on 10 listing presentations, I would print 10 and bind them and I would sit them right on my desk. And every day I would look at all the money I had just spent doing that. And it motivated me to go out and lead generate for seller appointments. It would also help me be prepared to be able to just kind of grab one and go. Now, here's some other, just a couple other tips in preparing your marketing listing presentation. Number 1, even though you are newly licensed and you don't have statistics, the office has statistics. Keller Williams has statistics, right? Use the power of the offices that you work for to use them on your listing presentation. So for instance, here locally in Kingston, which is my market center, we are the #1 single agent in Ulster County. That's absolutely something you should and can say on listing presentations. You can also say that we are part of the Hudson Valley Group and Upstate Group of real estate brokerages, which has over 500 realtors that span the Hudson Valley on both sides of the river. And all of those people look to sell our listings first. And there are a number of things that that you can give to sellers that gives them access to that community. Number 1 is we have a Facebook group. It's the Keller Williams Haves and Wants Facebook group. You can post coming soon listings in there. You're allowed to post them because you're allowed to share with your office. You can market listings within there. There's all sorts of, you can post open houses, that kind of stuff in there. So I would absolutely say that in the listing presentation. We have the largest footprint of any brokerage in the Hudson Valley, meaning we have agents that cover more tracts of land than any other brokerage in the Hudson Valley. Most of the other bigger brokerages are very condensed into one market area, like Ulster Green and Columbia, or Dutchess and Ulster, right? We have all the way down to New City and all the way up to Oneonta on both sides of the river agents. And we know people are moving around a lot, so they can use that. Now, on a monthly basis, your ASC should be putting out a document that's called the Lore Report. It's the language of real estate. It's a little flyer that will compare your office to the market as a whole. This will be helpful when you come across somebody like Carol was mentioning that is interviewing somebody else or interviewing other agents, right? So what this document does is it says, Keller Williams Hudson Valley North agents are outpacing the market in terms of listings sold compared to the whole rest of the MLS. So if our listings sold are up 85% year over year, and the rest of the offices combined are only up 10%, just for even numbers, then the flyer says we're up 75% against the competition. It's a very, very helpful flyer. Use that in your marketing as a new agent for the office, right? And you can also feel free to always say, we have our agents work together to sell listings. A couple other things I would mention at the listing appointment is the haves and wants. So before our team meeting at North, and I know the other offices do this too, they do a haves and wants session where everybody can get into the room and share listings that they have coming soon, buyers that are looking for listings, and sometimes you can market the property to our agents that way. Through our closed Facebook group of business, you get a bunch of other stuff locally, and then nationally, you are backed by the #1 name in real estate. So Keller Williams is the #1 real estate franchise in the country. We are #1 in closed units, closed volume, and agent count, which means that there are more real estate agents working with Keller Williams selling more homes than any other brand in the country. And so when you get to this point, the seller is going to go, cool, I don't care, right? And what you might say is, I'm sure that means nothing to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. And here's how that's going to be a benefit to you. I get access to a referral network of agents all across the country that I can share my listings with. You have this, it's in commands. It's the referral section in commands. You can go in and you can request agents all around the country to join your referral network. And then you can email blast out to them listings, you can correspond with them. You can send referrals back and forth all through that referral network, right? So what I would say, the other thing you can do with the referral section in commands is you can pull up a map of migration patterns, and it will show you where referrals are being sent in the system. So if we're in Kingston, they will show you how many referrals are being sent into where. So I'll give you a sneak peek. In Kingston, most of the outbound referrals and commands are being sent to Florida, okay? They're being sent to Florida. So is it in your best interest to go into the referral section and go into those market centers in Florida where these referrals are going and request every one of those agents to be in your referral network, and to email them when you have new listings, and to send them a newsletter for referrals, right? You have business going both ways. So that is something you can say on a listing presentation. So I have access to this unique referral network where I get inside data for referral networks all across the country, and I specifically network with agents who have referrals coming into our area. Here's another thing that is helpful for agents. For sellers, their listings are syndicated to over 300 websites. So when they list with a Keller Williams agent, the listing goes out to over 300 websites. Anywhere someone's looking to buy or sell real estate and they find a list of properties available on the internet, their house is going to show up there. There's also international properties on there. Okay, that's another benefit of listing with a Keller Williams agent. What's the third one that let me think for a second. We talked about the referral network, the KWLS, and there's another one, but it's escaping me right now in terms of Keller Williams. So we'll go over kind of the structure of the listing appointment, but those are some, some ammo to keep in your back pocket in terms of like setting yourself up to making them want to list with a KW agent and then making them want to list with you. Any questions on that?
Do you have a printout of all these statistics? Because I can't remember those in my head.
Haley will have the lore report she can print out for you. And then in the listing packet, when you do it, there's pages that talk about it. So you'll see when you run through the pages, there's different pages that talk about the Keller Williams listing syndicate. I think there's one that talks about the referral network. So just putting together the marketing packet will help you be able to design, the conversation. Okay, so that's what you want to do to get prepared to go on the appointment. You want to go on the MLS, see if there's a listing and find out any details about it. You want to go on to the tax website, pull up property statistics around it. You're going to complete a CMA and you're going to get together your marketing presentation. Now, the other thing you're going to do is you're going to send them that pre-listing packet that we talked about. Okay, so you're going to send them the pre-listing packet that we talked about. So Laura, you can move to the next screen. Okay, so the goal of the pre-listing packet is threefold. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to state your value, telling the seller what you bring to the table. It's also going to put in writing some common questions people have about selling their home. And it's going to save time by answering some of the common objections that sellers have when they're thinking about listing their home for sale. So I will go through, actually, Lori, can you stop sharing your screen again? I have the pre-listing packet up. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this is what the pre-listing packet looks like. So again, when you're on the phone with them, you've collected their email address, right? And you're gonna put this together and send it to them. So you're gonna put in here, obviously their name and then your name here. And it's very simple, it's not complicated. So this is the first page, a guide to selling your home. It's all about you. My real estate business is built around one guiding principle. It's all about you, right? People are only concerned. Again, we didn't start with, it's all about me and you listing with me. You notice that, right? The first page isn't a flashy thing about me. It's setting the tone that this is about you and I'm going to provide you with the things that you want, because that's actually what consumers think is important. Okay, so I will help you by taking time to understand your wants, needs, and expectations, answering your questions, returning your phone calls and emails the same day, and being honest with you at all times. Before I read the rest of these, can anybody tell me is there anything about this page that stands out to you as being important to include in this packet? Why we start off on this foot?
Transparency.
Yep. John, was there something else you're going to add?
Because it's all about them.
Yes, very good. Here's the other thing. If one of your lead generation tactics is to list and sell expired listings, that's homes that were listed by an agent that did not sell, so they came off the market and now they can be relisted, or somebody who is listed for sale by owner, so they're trying to sell their home themselves and they've struck out, so now they're interested in having an appointment with you. This page pretty much combats all of the objections that you hear from expireds and for sale by owners. So what do you hear from expireds a lot of the time? My agent came over, they listed my house, they put a sign in my yard, I talked to them the first week, then we didn't get any offers and I never heard from them again. I'm not kidding, sellers say this all the time. I never heard from them again. I had to call them. I would reach out to them and they wouldn't, it would take them a week to return my phone calls. they came in the middle of the night to pick up the lockbox and the sign because they wanted to avoid me. Like, really, I mean, sometimes agents do wacky things like this. Like, they get and from the agent's point of view, agents get stressed when they have a listing and they're trying to sell it and it's not selling. And so they are like, oh my God, this person probably hates me. I don't want to talk to them. They're going to yell at me. So then they go rogue and stop talking to the person. And then their house expires. And now they hate, they hate all realtors. So that's why number one is returning your phone calls and emails the same day. It seems like it should be second nature. And yet from expires, you will hear that, right? You'll hear that a lot. Helping you obtain the highest possible price for your house in the shortest amount of time. For sale by owners usually think that they're going to be able to sell their house without compensating an agent. And so they're going to make the most money. They are wrong. They usually misprice their property. They don't know how to negotiate appropriately and they leave a bunch of money, usually in excess of what they would have paid a realtor to do it professionally, right? Advising you on pricing and staging, which I have evaluated your home thoroughly against the market. Again, that's something for sale by owners don't have access to. Implementing a comprehensive marketing plan to expose your house for buyers through as many channels as possible. Expireds a lot of times say, my agent did nothing to market my house. That's why it didn't sell. Now, 9 times out of 10, it didn't sell because the house was not priced appropriately. Okay. And 9 times out of 10, the seller's not going to admit that. They're going to say that the buyer their agent didn't market it properly. Presenting all offers and advising you on terms and contingencies contained within. That's something that a for sale by owner does not get the benefit of, right? Negotiating on your behalf is the best offer. Again, this is highlighting something that if a for sale by owner doesn't list with you when you get on the appointment, these are things they're gonna have to keep doing by themselves, or that they're gonna be on the hook for doing. Scheduling and coordinating completion of contingencies and inspections, monitoring the buyer's loan progress, coordinating and supervising the preparation of all real estate closing documents, guiding you through the closing process during the entire listing from start to finish, always representing your best interest. So we start from here because a lot of times if somebody has had a bad experience with a realtor, it's going to fall under one of these categories, even if they're not expired or for sale by owner. And so you're just setting the stage that this is how you're going to conduct business, right? So this is the first page. The second page is going to give them get ready to list. And this says 5 factors affecting the value of your property. It starts with price. I'm here to tell you that if you do not price a property well, you could market it until the cows come home and it will sit on the market. Price is the main reason 99.9% of the time why a home doesn't sell. All homes will sell. You have foreclosures that sell in multiple offers in minutes, right? Because they're priced appropriately. So if the price isn't in line, there's 2 determining factors, price and condition, and they have to match. If the price doesn't match the condition, it doesn't mean that it's overpriced. It just means it doesn't match the condition of the property. So you need to lower the price, right? Location, condition, competition, and timing. Now, here's the thing about this page, and this is a weird study. People trust things that they see in writing far more than they trust somebody telling them verbally it. So you're going to say all of this stuff at the listing presentation, and just putting it in writing for them beforehand is going to allow them to see it in writing, which is going to hold more water with them. So that when you get on the listing presentation and you go, price is going, the way we market your property is going to be the determining factor here, right? They're going to go, oh yeah, I read that someplace. Like they already have a seed planted in their head, even though it's your seed, right? You sent them the packet. Seeing something in writing is going to help solidify this. So that's why we have this page here. Okay, this is another thing about a well-priced home, right? And there's a little graph. You can read through that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Then there's some information about getting a house in a good condition, right? Again, this can do some of the heavy lifting so that when you get on the presentation, when you get on the listing presentation, you can refer back to this document if you're making recommendations about the condition of their property. Now, this page, questions for you. This is a great page, right? They're good questions. They're interesting questions. What is the most important thing you're looking for in a listing agent? What prior real estate transaction experiences have you had? How would you like to be communicated with? Blah, 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 all these things. Here's the secret to this page. Number one, it's good information if the people fill it out. Number two, whether or not somebody fills this out is going to tell you a lot about somebody's personality. Okay, when you walk into the listing presentation and somebody has this page printed out, typed, and 2 copies of it, one for you, one for them to keep in their file, does that tell you something about how they like to do business? If you get on the listing presentation and they go, I don't know, yeah, I looked at it for a second, I didn't fill it out, I'm not that interested in it, or whatever, I can look at it later. Does that tell you something about how that person wants to be interacted with? Is that person going to want to get bogged down in checklists and detail work with you? Is the person that filled it out and has 2 copies for you going to be okay with you just glossing over details and assuming that everything's, and taking the stance that everything's just going to work out in the end? This is the key to this pre-listing packet. There's tons of great information in it, and this sheet will give you, again, an inside track on the person that you are walking into a listing presentation trying to build rapport with, talk to, and get to know rather quickly so that you can secure the listing. Okay. And then there's an About Me section, right? And then just a blank page. So the About Me section, again, it's optional. I would complete it, right? You can include, you could swap this, you could add in here the market, offices, stats, whatever you want, a little bit of About Me. Again, it's at the end, it's not at the beginning. People want to know what you're going to do for them first before they're going to be interested in you. Any questions about putting together or sending out this pre-listing packet? Okay, so you send it by email. By the way, you can automate this. You can automate this. You can automate it in commands. You can send out auto updates in commands so that as you're moving people through your opportunity phases, if you can load a checklist in. So your checklist, once you set an appointment and you're moving them to appointment set, is all of the things we just went over. And you can set it up so that you just check a box and this email with their name goes out with this document attached to it for them. It's going to take you 10 minutes to set it up, and then 1 second, once forever, again, helping you systematize the process a little bit. Okay, so you're going to email this out to them. Lori, I'm just going to share my screen here because it's just kind of easier, I think. All right, so we did the pre-listing packet. All right, so now you are going to the house. We went over this. I'm just going to land here because we're basically to the part where we talk about when you actually get to the house. Actually, I'm going to stop my screen share. Okay, so now you've prepared. Any questions leading up to how do you set the appointment? How do you talk to somebody and use that sheet? What do you do beforehand to make sure that you're prepared? How to make sure you're super prepared for the listing presentation? Okay, good. All right, so now you've set an appointment. It's the day of the appointment. It's 12 o'clock. Your appointment's at 12 o'clock. So what you want to do is you want to show up. You want to make sure you're on time. Goes without saying. Some realtors run on realtor time. Don't run on realtor time when you're going to a listing presentation. Be there early, on time or early is always good. Find something. What I would do is I would find something to compliment on my way up. Oh, it's a beautiful day. You have a lovely garden. I love your walkway. That's a nice car. If there's nothing nice to compliment, maybe the weather is nice that day, right? Like start off with something on the positive foot. So you're going to walk up, you're going to have with you your copy. What I would do is if I had the marketing thing to give out to them, I would have my own copy at first, at least, that I would keep with me with my little scribbles and notes and stuff. And same thing, my own CMA that I would put scribbles and notes on, and then their copy to give to them, right? So you walk up to the door, knock on the door. When they go to answer the door, take a step backwards. Okay, it's just a psychological thing. Take a step backwards. If they're opening and you're leaning in, it's just a weird psychological thing where they all of a sudden feel like you're getting into their business a little quick. So knock on the door, they go to open, take a step back, right? Shake their hand or whatever, fist bump them, wave, whatever's going on with COVID appropriate responses, right? Do that. and thank them. Thank you so much for allowing me to come over and tour your home. I'm so excited to be here. Oh my gosh, and you have a beautiful flower garden, right? Or whatever it is you found to compliment. Okay, now there's going to be 3 stages of the listing presentation, and you want to do them in this order. The first step of the listing presentation is the tour of the house. So normally what will happen is you'll drop your stuff somewhere, dining room table, kitchen table, or whatever, and you'll say, oh, can you show me, would you mind showing me around? Sometimes sellers don't know what to do if they have never been on a listing presentation, so you have to kind of guide them. Like, would you mind showing me around? Sometimes people are like, okay, let me show you around. Okay, so again, the key to being shown around is that this is, to me, the most important part of the whole thing is the tour around the house. This is your chance to build rapport with somebody and to get into relationship with them, okay? This is your chance to ask them a lot of questions and allow them to talk a lot. You're gonna start talking a lot in the other phases of the listing presentation. This is the chance to ask them questions and allow them to speak. During the tour, they should be doing the most talking. The one thing to understand, especially when you're in sales, you're getting into conversations that maybe make you nervous. The person asking the questions is always going to control the conversation, right? And so if you're feeling nervous about going in the listing presentation, just ask them a bunch of questions, right? You don't have to talk to them about yourself yet. You're not sitting there like they're not objection handling your commission, anything like that yet. You really are just asking them questions about the house. Again, if you've asked them beforehand, can you explain your home to me, and you have an idea about what they're going, about the way that they did it, they're gonna continue to confirm that throughout the house tour, right? So somebody that's a high D, it's gonna be like a 5-minute tour. You're gonna be in and out, and anything nice or substantial in the house, you're gonna hear about. That's our granite counters. We spent 20 grand on them. Do you see our back? It's saltwater pool in the back. Do you notice we have the biggest thing? Do you notice my blah, 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 right? Somebody that's a high I is going to start talking away. Oh, and we have our big parties in this room. And this is the Thanksgiving. You were now, okay, the person told me that they do 17-person Thanksgiving dinners. Oh, I can see the big table. This is where you do your 17-person dinners, right? You're recalling the information that they've already given you. Oh, these are beautiful. Are these bamboo flooring? These are beautiful. You're recalling the information, the info that they've given you, right? And you're building rapport with them. So you're seeing the other things you can take notice during this is how fast are they talking? Are they talking really fast? Are they talking really slow? Are they needing to give you details and a lot of information, or are they cutting right to the chase? You're going to want to kind of take note of this stuff so that when you sit down to do your presentation, you can do it in a mirror and matching style. Okay. So you start touring around the house. So the high D is going to be like pointing out everything great about the house. The high I is going to be like telling you about all the fun times that they've had in the home and blah, 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 blah. The S is going to be the ones where you get into the kids' rooms and they're like, oh, and there's the soccer trophies, and it's such, this is my kids that played on that playground in the back when we had it, and they haven't been on in 5 years. It's so sad. Or, this is where my husband and I watch TV. It's really great for that. And they're also going to be probably the ones that are telling you, that are kind of giving you a lot of details, right? And how they felt in the house, like what the feeling was about the house. The high C's are going to be like, this room is, 600 square feet, and we have vaulted ceilings, and it's engineered hardwood floors, and here's the primary bedroom, and there's a primary bath attached to it, right? It's going to be very like black and white kind of idea. Okay, so now you're going to go through the whole tour, take however long it takes, right? The whole time, the key is, one, you have a clipboard or whatever you have, and you're taking notes, any information that they ask you. This might also be when you say to them, oh, I noticed that there's a shed on the property. I didn't pull, do you have a permit for the shed? If you know off the top of your head, you didn't see that on your little recon mission, right? Oh, you have an in-ground pool. When did you put in the pool? Oh, a year ago. That's excellent. Okay. And was that all done with proper permits, right? Things of that nature. You can ask them questions you might have about the property. What stage of the boiler, blah, 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 different things of that nature. Whatever you want to ask them. Drop in all the information you Okay, so you go through the whole thing. Then you're gonna sit down, and you're normally sitting down at a dining room table or a kitchen table. So you sit down, and again, you wanna take control of the conversation. Don't let them just be like, okay, so what's the commission and what are you gonna list my house for? And blah, 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 blah. You don't wanna do any of that. That conversation is the most difficult of all, so you save it for last. So the next thing you wanna do is you wanna get out your marketing packet that you prepared for them and say, thank you so much for giving me a tour around. So what I want to do is I want to go over exactly what I do to get homes sold fast and for the highest price possible. And then we can talk a little bit about where your home fits in the current market. Again, I didn't say what I think your home is worth. Don't ever say to anybody, I think your home is worth. That's bad. Just don't even use that verbiage. The market where your home fits in the current market, right? The market. I don't make this. If I made a decision, all my listings would be $5 million listings, and all my buyers would buy a house for exact, like, you know, $300 a month less than their budget. I don't make the market. The market makes the market, right? So then you're going to go through your listing packet that you've prepared, right? So typically that looks like starting with a little bit about you, right? You've let them talk, so now it's your time. Okay, so a little bit about me, blah, 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 blah. And then I work with Keller Williams, and I'm part of the Hudson Valley and Upstate group. We have 4 offices throughout the Hudson Valley and over 500 agents working with you. And I'm partnered with Keller Williams, which is the #1 real estate franchise in the country. We're #1 by closed units, closed volume, and agent count, which I know means absolutely nothing to you. And here's what you're going to get by listing with me and me as a Keller Williams agent, part of this group. And then you're going to go through some of that. Then I usually would pivot to, okay, so now what we have to think about is your home's first impression is going to be made online. It's not the old days where buyers would walk into a real estate office and the sheets were faxed in the morning and the realtor was the only person that had the information and they got picked out which houses and then they brought you to that house. That's not how buyers work anymore. Your home's first impression is going to be made on the internet. And so this is how I'm going to do it. I always do professional photography online, right? Talk about that. I always do drone or 3D Matterport or whatever you're doing, right, to get your home looking great. I also, you know, depending if you're going to do this or not, we can do a staging consultation where I can really help you walk through the home and figure out how we can place it so that we're catching the attention of the buyer as soon as it hits the market. What we know is in the first 10 days of listing the home is when your home is going to get the most activity. So we have to make sure that when we first list your home, we do the biggest splash because that's our biggest opportunity to maximize your price, to get your home sold quick and for the highest price. In addition to the awesome photography we're going to do, I am a part of Keller Williams, which means that I get access to the Keller Williams listing syndicate. That is going to push your home out onto 300 different websites. Any website anybody lands on that has a home for sale, your home is going to be listed there, which is awesome. Here's what else I am going to do when I first list your house. I have a database. You all have databases. I have a database of hundreds of people or thousands of people, whatever your database size is. I will be marketing your property to my database. There are active buyers in that database. I'm also going to be marketing your property through our closed Facebook group to all 500 agents in our office so that they can get first dibs on it. I'm also going to highlight your property at our haves and wants before our team meeting, right? I'm also going to send out 100 postcards to all of your neighbors because I know sometimes people like to choose their neighbor. So I'm going to make sure all your neighbors know that you're selling your house so that if they know somebody, if they like living here and they know somebody that would like to live here, maybe we can put something together easily that way. Here's another thing I would mention that I would do to get homes sold. Here's something else, Mr. Buyer and Seller. Another benefit of being with a KW agent is we are the only real estate company that has an exclusive partnership with Facebook, which also owns Instagram and Google. So what that means is that I'm able to run ads, paid advertising for your listing through Facebook and Instagram, which is where buyers go now to look for homes for sale, that will get you a huge reach in a short amount of time. My average ad I would run got in front of 10,000 people for like $30, by the way. Not a lot of money. If you don't know how to do this, find your nearest ASC and they will help you with this. We have an exclusive partnership with Facebook. They give us a farther reach than they give other real estate brokerages when I run ads. So I'm going to not only target buyers in this area, but I also have the ability to target buyers from where I'm in Ulster, well, all of us, it's applicable, from New York City. I run ads in front of buyers in New York City because we know that there's a lot of buyers coming up to the area that are from New York City. So I make sure that they are advertised that way. We also have a policy in my office that it's your listing, your lead, meaning when I list your home for sale, any buyer that is interested in your home is going to be brought back to me directly. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let me ask you, if they come, you might not understand what the difference is between going to me and just going to another agent in the office. See, my goal is to sell your house. So when someone comes to me about your house, I'm the one that is going to know all of the information about your house, right? I'm the one that's going to be able to sell them on why they should come and see the home. That isn't always the case with other brokerages. Sometimes when people inquire on a house, they just give the information out to whomever is sitting at the front desk at that time. And that person's objective is not always to get your home sold. Sometimes it's to sell their own listings that might be similar to yours. Sometimes they don't know anything about your home. And so they're not going to be able to answer the questions. And so when you list with me, any inquiries come right back to me and I'm the one that's going to know everything about your home. So I'm going to be able to answer that question. I would also share during this time also, because I have this referral network, the same rules apply. A lot of my business is from Keller to Keller referrals from this referral network that I've developed of people who have Keller Williams agents that are coming, that have people that are buying in the area. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, whose homes would you say I show the property? What homes do you think I show them first? My listings. I always show them my listings first. So any referrals I get to the area are also going to get shown first, right? These are just some ideas that I've used. You can also come up with your own, right? There's an unlimited amount of things that you can do to market somebody's house. You might touch on open houses that you do, or whatever else you do, networking events or organizations that you're involved with. Anything that you do to get somebody's home sold, that's really where you would want to highlight that. So you're going to go through your marketing packet. And as you're doing that, here's another salesy tactic. You can ask them as you're going through. I always do professional photography for the house. Can you see how that would help your home give you a good first impression on the market? They're going to say yes. Okay. It's called a trial. It's a trial close. If you can get them during the marketing segment saying yes to a bunch of things as you're going through it, at the end, they are more likely to say yes about listing with you. Can you see how listing with a Keller Williams agent and being part of and having your home on 300 different websites would be a benefit to you? Yes, great. Could you see how marketing to your neighbors, blah, 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 would help maybe find a buyer for your house relatively quickly? Yes, great. You don't want to do it after every single one, but take three or four of the spiel things and say, could you see how this could help you sell your home for the most amount of money, least amount of time, whatever it is? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, so you're going to go through all the whole marketing packet. Okay, then you're going to end the marketing segment, and then you're going to go, okay, so are there any, do you have any questions that I can answer about how I'm going to get your home sold for the most amount of money in the least amount of time? And then they're going to ask whatever questions they have. Okay, great. What else? Use the what else tactic. What else? What else? What else? Until they say, no, nothing else. Here's another good question to ask them. Is there anything that you were hoping to see that I didn't touch on yet? Who knows? They could be like, we really want to be networked in, China. It's like people, we really wanted to hear about a broker open tours or whatever. And we didn't even hear you say that, right? So just so you can ask that. Is there anything that you were hoping to hear here that maybe I didn't touch on? Likelihood is that I do it. I just might not have said it yet. Even if you don't do it, right? You could do it for this listing, I'm sure, whatever it is that they've come up with, if it's reasonable. Okay, what else? Great. Okay, excellent. So would it be fair to say you could see how if I'm able to execute this marketing plan on the property that you'll be able to sell your home quickest and for the most amount of money. Great. Okay, so now let's look at how your home compares to where your home fits in the current market. And that's where you're going to go through your whole CMA. So again, I'm not going to go through how to present a CMA or prepare a CMA. That's its own Ignite class, right? But you'll want to go in and go through the CMA and again, ask questions. Do you have any questions? Is this the value that you are hoping for, right? Is this what you were anticipating me to say? Okay, then if you did your job with the pre-listing packet and you know their timeline, right? Then at the end, it's very simple. So you shared with me when we were on the phone that you wanted to get your home listed in the next 14 days. My photographer's turnaround time is usually 3 to 4 days. I can text him right now to get that set up. Are we looking at moving forward with listing your home for sale? So one of the things that's key is future pace them a little, right? Like dangle something. If you said you're going to get them a staging console, okay, I would love to get my stager in. So here's what would happen next, right? Here's what's going to happen next. I'm going to get my photographer lined up, or I'm going to get my stager in, or I'm going to blah, 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 do whatever it is. And if you're telling me today that you're ready to get, to list with me, right? Or get your house on the market with me or whatever it is. And then they might have some objections, right? Sometimes they do have objections around commission or price or whatever it is that you can work through with them. You want to, anytime they have an objection, you want to isolate it, right? Especially if the objection is that they need to talk it over and get back to you, right? Or they give you an objection. Say somebody says, we were thinking about just listing for sale by owner. Okay, we see how all this marketing could be of a benefit to us, and we're considering listing for sale by owner because I feel like the market's really great and we'll be able to find a buyer, no problem. And I'm really good at taking cell phone pictures. Okay, great. So the first thing you want to do anytime you get an objection is isolate the objection. So outside of feeling like you can market and sell your home, you'll be able to market your home properly. Is there anything else standing in the way of listing with me? Oh yeah, well also we have another realtor coming over later today, blah, 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 that we're gonna interview. Okay, great. Aside from thinking about maybe listing for sale by owner because you feel like you can market the house and you also want to interview another agent, is there anything else that would keep you from listing with me today? Is there anything else? Anything else? Okay, great. So you're gonna get a list of all of the objections that they might have. And then you just want to kind of work through each one, right? Work through each objection. And it's kind of varies in terms of what the objection is, how you can work through it. Part of it is understanding your value proposition, right? To go more in depth about. Some of it is just explaining the process, right? Some of it ends up being pricing objections. Like that is what I would say your probably two biggest objections you're going to get on a listing presentation is price, right? About where you think they want to list the house, which again, you can pull back up that pre-listing packet with that triangle. And it shows if you list what the activity is, if you list the house at market, slightly above or slightly below what your market reach ends up being, right? And so then it might just turn into a question. So let me ask you, if we're talking about listing here, we know market value is about here, but you're asking to list like 15% over market value. And by doing that, we're going to diminish our buyer pool by like 50%. Are you okay with testing the market out and seeing if we get a buyer, if that means it's going to take 4 months then to sell your house. Right? If we want to try a higher price out, what's going to happen when the market tells us no? Not me, your agent. I'll happily sell the house for more money. But what happens if the market tells us no? Then what's the plan? Can we come to an agreement that if we don't get any offers in 10 days, you'll reduce the price? If in that time I agree to run a Facebook ad, send out postcards, and do an open house. Great. Can you see how overpricing the house? I know let me ask you, what is more important to you? Getting to Florida in 3 months, or maybe getting an extra $10,000 for your house? If you had to choose, what would be more important? Just as a reminder, in the first 10 days of listing your home, you're going to get the most activity. We will know in the first 10 days whether or not we overpriced your home. We'll know because you'll have no offers. And in this market, when the average days on market is X and the average list price to sell price ratio is Y, right? Ulster County, I think it's 99.5% of listing prices being received. We're getting a bunch of low offers. We're going to know that we overpriced your house. So then what are we going to do when the market tells us, no, this is not the price for your home? Right? That's a need. That is sometimes one you have to, work through with people. So then at the end, what you want to do is you can get their agreement, right? You can use, you can get them to sign the listing agreement with the addendum, which gives you time to market the property. That gives you a little bit of a window to market the property, right? Or you want to set a time to follow up with them, or however the conversation goes. If you're there for like one of these like pre-listing meetings, you want to get an idea of when you should follow up with them or come back or figure out who's doing what next, right? However the conversation ends, you always want to set them up with the next steps. Okay, so just as a recap, that's what you want to do with buyers too. I'm going to type up a list of things that I recommend that you do to get your house in, listing ready thing, and I'm going to get the photographer scheduled. You're going to do all the decluttering and all the stuff, and we're going to aim to get your house on the market by Y, right? Like future pace people into whatever should be going next. Get them just like on the treadmill going, working towards it. And that's it. Then you thank them. Thank you so much. Can't wait to list your house. Gonna get it sold. Then I'm gonna sell all your neighbors' houses. Can't wait. Getting a bunch of buyer leads from this. It's awesome. Don't say that. And then that's it. So that is it for in terms of the listing presentation. So I know we ran a little bit over. Comments, questions, and then I want to hear some ahas. So we'll start with questions. I know it's a lot of information. Questions? Comments? Okay, so what are some ahas?
For me, some of the ahas are the objections, handling some of those. I thought you had some really great ideas on how to like isolate what else, isolate, and then figuring out how to really address those are going to be really helpful. So I found that especially helpful.
Awesome.
I'm excited to think more about those.
That's
I think they could be like, they're potentially fun once you learn their communication style, and you can help ease their tension. And if you can be that source of information and give them the confidence to move forward, it's fun.
If you can get into relationship with the people to some extent between the initial phone conversation and then the tour around the house, right? You're talking about probably a solid at least 30 minutes minimum that you've interacted with them. You should be able to build some type of rapport with them that makes the objection handling a little bit easier, because they might, if they like you by that time, then they're more likely to go easy on you when they're arguing with you about commission and price and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Carol, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, my aha moment was just using both the questionnaire and old listings possible listings to get information on the
Yes.
seller's home that, make you sound knowledgeable.
Awesome. I love that. That's great.
Agreed.
Nice. Okay, one more.
Rita, I just wanted to say, no matter how long you've been in the business, there's always something to learn from going back to the basics. And sometimes we forget, I have a listing I'm getting ready to take, licensed 18 years in July, by the way, and I haven't covered any of this with this seller, none of it. So, which is great that I can get that listing because I sold her this house years ago. But at the same time, it's really, really important that we continue to let people know what our value is and why we are the right person for the job, and then just the ridiculous amount of resources that Command and Keller Williams has to offer us. If we're not using them at a high level, we're really missing the mark.
Yeah. I mean, all this stuff was created to make all of our lives easier, streamline things, give us a way to show up great and professional in the marketplace. And I agree, Lori. I think one of my bigger ahas when I was newly licensed was that I needed to treat my friends and family just like I would treat a stranger off the street in terms of the process. I know I made a mistake early on, like going into somebody that I knew well and just being like, well, they're just going to list with me because they know me. And that's not fair to the person, right? Like they're selling hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s worth of real estate. They deserve a professional to show up and give them the same presentation that you would give to anybody, even if it's your sister, your best friend, anybody like that. And I had the same realization, and it also helped me with referrals too, because the person really felt like, oh no, you really should go to Rita. Like she knows what she's talking about. She's really professional. She's able to do X, Y, and Z. Like I didn't just list with her because I felt obliged to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions, comments, ahas? All right. Always learning something new. I need a refresher to remind me what would happen if your house wouldn't sell. Yeah. It's a good one. Gets you to understand their mind space, right?
Yeah.
What would happen if we don't sell your house? Nothing? Okay, great. It's going to be the end of the world. Something, terrible is going to happen. Okay, great. Now I know now I know when I'm arguing with you about price that I have something in my back pocket to recall. Remember you told me your house has to get sold, right? So if we want to ensure that, we need to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, good. All right, so we'll wrap up for today. The next session on Wednesday, it will be You're Stuck With Me Again. And we are going to go over everything with working with buyers. So how to work with buyers effectively, get buyers to write competitive offers in this market that we're in, figure out which buyers are serious enough to be in the market that we're in the first place, right? All of that. And then how to provide a really great customer service experience for buyers so that when it's time for them to sell the house that you just helped them buy, they call you to be their listing agent, right? And you get repeat and referral business from that. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome day. Thanks, Lori. Thanks for being my wingman.
Thank you, everyone.
Rita.
All right. Bye. See you
Bye.
Wednesday.
Thank you.